Whether you are a clinician, therapist, or somebody seeking mental health services that is looking to find some out-of-the-box thinking, I think you'll find it today on my podcast interview with Amity Cooper. She is a counselor, entrepreneur, and in-service professional to first responders and healthcare providers, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and innovators alike who desire to uncover and reach their full potential in life. She's going to be speaking to us today about her new Equine-Therapy project, how she shifted from a full career in business to eventually becoming a mental health therapist, how she believes that technology can help our industry and reach more people efficiently, and how to diversify your own mental health practice as a therapist, bring technology in, and even get into different things like groups and collaborate with other practitioners, and more on equine therapy. We have quite a rich conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it very much. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome Amity Cooper to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and there seems to be a lot to talk about and discuss.
Yes, absolutely. And I've read your bio and all of the things you've been up to in the show notes before the show, and they'll be in the notes for people to click on. And of course, you're a licensed mental health professional in the state of Colorado, but you have a lot of stuff going on. So, in addition to private practice, as people know, you have done equine-assisted therapy, you're a lifebook facilitator, and you are trying to help other behavioral health professionals serve their clients without burning out. And we're going to get into that. So let's talk about you first. Tell me about your journey and how you sort of became who you are today through our career.
Yeah, it's sort of a circuitous path. So for about 20 years, I was in the business world. I was a product developer and marketer, and I got my experience by launching and starting and selling my wares, from fashion accessories to my last business I was a gourmet chocolate maker. And so I have done a lot of work in the creative space as well as the manufacturing space. And all of those skills were amazing preparation for what it's like to sit knee to knee with somebody. And so along that path, I actually went back and I got my first master's in conflict resolution. So I'm a trained mediator and negotiator. And that skill set basically it was really helpful in my business life. And I find that it is still helpful today in my counseling life. But let me just say that I think I knew that I always wanted to work up close and personal with people, but I felt that I wasn't quite ready to be as vulnerable and sit knee to knee with them about 20 years ago as I am and feel loving it today. But I think it probably applies to a lot of us who are listening to this podcast today, that, your journey into this work really can be twisting and turning in all sorts of different directions. And you should never, all of those skills and experiences build on the next. And that is often what I tell my coaching clients about, is that, if you're thinking about a career change or an encore career or whatever, you have so much to offer to the world, and everybody's just waiting for you to show up. So, it's been a great path. And so back in 2016, I think, is when I went back for a second master's degree in counseling here in Colorado. I've been doing it ever since.
Oh, wonderful. That is excellent. Yeah. And I'm curious, is there anything you would share about why you moved from kind of the business world to the counseling world?
Yeah. I hit a wall, really. In 2015, the business that I was working on was the chocolate business, and it was delicious and lovely, and it was fun. But I had reached a point of burnout. Unfortunately, in the manufacturing world, you're only as good as your next factory. So if you don't have a place to produce your product and you're not producing it yourself, which is my case, um, then you don't have a business. And I literally had a factory one day, and then the next day I didn't. And when that happened, it sent me into a moment of crisis. And I think we can all relate to that, where something external events dictate what happens to us. And we just have to take stock of that moment and go down deep and through in order to get to the other side. And I realized at that point that I was so exhausted from hoofing my wares of being externally driven that it was now time for me to do something that was more internally satisfying and purposeful. And that I was ready to take that next step and go back and get a degree in counseling.
Oh, excellent. So instead of, you kind of hit a wall in the external world, and it was time to go inward and sort of focus on a different part of your life and skill set, and then transitioning. And then interestingly enough, obviously people know that you are not your average therapist that just sort of goes to the same dusty building every day and does the same coping techniques. You have brought your creativity from the business world and from your life into your therapy practice, which is why it's obviously unique enough for you to have a business, and people are seeking you out for all sorts of different things. So,
I can talk. I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Especially for the individual who has, for all intents and purposes, has created a very outwardly successful presence, professional profile, view, or whatever. And for most of us, we work on a developmental path where we're striving for those first 20 years of our professional lives, and we're trying to reach that next goal. We have a lot of benchmarks that we want to reach and accomplish. And then for a lot of us, when we hit a middle point on our life trajectory, we realize that we kind of go, oh, why was I doing that? What was it for? Who was it for? Was it for somebody else or some other belief? Or was it truly for ourselves to grow and mature and be, in fact, impactful in the world? And that's exactly what happened to me. It was one door closed and another door opened. And was I going to cross that threshold or not?
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that actually reminds me of there's a psychologist named James Hollis. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I love him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's got two books on the middle life, I guess you'd call it. One is called The Middle Passage, from misery to meaning in midlife. And I think he's got a new one. It was an excellent book. I read it a couple of years ago. Gosh, he's written so many books. I'm just throwing it out here for the people that love, we have a lot of bibliophiles that read books and email me about what book was I talking about. Oh yeah, this one, Living an Examined Life, Wisdom for the Second Half of the Journey. And I do resonate with that. I think that is incredible. It's sort of an active adaptation in the US. You have a choice to kind of create your own business and do your own thing. And a lot of people do that, or they try to move up in a company, and it is competitive. I mean, that's probably why we've dominated business, except for, in the top 20 countries for that. But yet it can be exhausting. And so how do we then balance that? You switched careers. For me as a therapist, I have been changing how I do therapy and what my focus is, and to train younger therapists and do things like that. So Tell me a little bit about your passions. We're going to talk about how you've been helping therapists. I want to get there, but I want to ask you kind of about your equine and your
Yeah.
passions about the way you do therapy.
Oh, well, I have learned something about myself is that I do not follow the traditional path, no matter whatever I choose to do in life. I kind of figure it out on my own. And if I see a solution out there, it's my entrepreneurial cred, really. Um, it is just like if I see an opening somewhere, I can kind of creatively come up with a solution for it. And that was sort of my special sweet sauce when I was in business for myself. But in the therapeutic world, I also created that. So when I literally, in just a short little segue to why equine therapy today, is that I had just started out in my training and I was walking the halls during break one evening and I saw this flyer saying, "Come spend a day with horses." And I was like, ding, 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 ding. Yes, I would love to do that. And I had never grown up around horses. I'd been loving them, but I was a dance girl. So I chose that path instead. So to have this up close and personal experience with horses sounded like a lot of fun. Well, I went out there and it was an all day clinic with other therapists in training to have this experience, and we were required to go into this round pen. Okay, it is what it is. It's a round pen. It's pretty large, and there were three horses at liberty. That means there's no halter, no gear, no nothing, and they were just moving around the pen, and that can be rather intimidating for somebody who's never been up close and personal, right, to a 1,000-pound animal. And we had to do some sort of activity, like we had to rely on our human companion to help us halter up or join up with a particular horse. Well, by the end of the day, I was so struck by the powerful visceral experience I was having. It was such a somatic experience. I got out of there and I wept like a baby. And I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm not joking you. It was like the clouds parted, the sun came down. It was such this amazing experience. And I thought, if I can have this sort of powerful moment, in the moment reality and reaction, I can only imagine what that's like for people coming to seek it out for therapy. And so while I was in training, clinical training, I ended up following the gentleman in that program and got certified as an equine therapist in concert, in parallel, at the same time. So it was 2 additional years of training and intensive work, but I loved it. And so I graduated with the 2 certifications. And that was kind of a longer story about it, but that's how I came into it. And I haven't looked back. And it is such a rich, full way of approaching the world, approaching my issues, of being in relationship with nature, being in relationship with yourself. It's a really powerful work. And that's why I've chosen it.
Yeah, I've heard incredible stories about equine therapy just throughout my career, talking to people that have done it. Can you tell me just a little bit about this? This is not, are you turning this equine therapy into like a larger thing, or is it more just you doing it with your clients? Is it like becoming something
No,
with other people?
It fits into a larger scale project of mine. So, um, 2 years ago, I purchased a 40-acre ranch property here in Colorado. It's about 50 minutes southeast of Denver, and I've been setting it up as a guest ranch. And then I just acquired another neighboring 40 acres. So all in all, I have 80 acres of pasture, of facilities. And so it is a master plan of mine to create a mental health clinic that opens it up of services for all kinds of practitioners, really, who practice in the alternative space, whether you're a wilderness guide or a Gestaltian or however you want to label yourself, or the kind of work that you do from young to old. But primarily, I work with adults and groups and private groups to bring the power of the horse and nature to them. So that is the master plan.
Oh, I like that. That's huge and well needed. I think that I'm a huge fan of therapists that are outside the box. That's something I'm trying to create right now in my own clinic. We're partnering in the next 6 months with a larger group of alternative practitioners and yoga and all sorts of acupuncture and things like that. So I'm really excited to have us kind of have that available for clients. Obviously, everyone's an independent practitioner, but it's so cool. And then you actually having an outdoor facility, that is phenomenal. And I know that it could be quite powerful.
That is this plan, like this immersive experience is really, I want to make it more readily available to the public at large. I mean, this is the challenge for the kind of work that I do. You're limited by space, you're limited by accessibility, availability, affordability, all of these things. And we can definitely jump off board here and talk more about technology. But with all of these new advancements coming online, we have a way to deal with this mental health crisis on scale. And I think the very fact that we're having this conversation and you saying you too are looking and exploring alternative routes to provide healing and wellness to your clients says something. It says that there is this growing need and demand for different ways of coping and finding a new way to heal themselves and to move through the world differently. And for me, it has been miraculous to watch people instantaneously present differently, feel differently when they're next to a horse partner. In a lot of ways, it's almost, I don't know how to say this, but just really it's almost simple, stupid. I don't even feel like I'm doing much. I am just facilitating and a witness to the amazing transformative power of that experience. And I guide it and I offer openings or an awareness to something, but I help them bring attention to what's going on inside. And they do the rest, I don't know about you, but I think that's really powerful work. And it doesn't have to be bogged down in 220 different variations of CBT.
Now you're talking my language. Yeah, I think that good therapy is good therapy is not just prescriptions and going through a coping book. I think that it's important for clients, if they're really in a bad place, to kind of learn coping skills and have some structure. Absolutely. But if you want to have deep, long-lasting healing, the studies are moving much more towards experiential, somatic, EMDR, because you're looking at long-lasting changes, not just in the mind, but the body, and also in the way that people deal with things going forward. My idea for therapy is that you should graduate and then maybe move on to community resources or learning to meditate or get into a sport or get into art or something, find people that are like-minded. And I think the horse, from what I know about equine, is it accelerates people's ability to reflect on how they move in the world and where their stuck points are, because of the way that you have to establish trust with the animal and the other people around. So I think you're getting I don't want to say shortcut, but it's a way to really get people into the work in a way that is incredible. And I think technology can do that too. I mean, people are on their tech all the time. If they're in the US and have a smartphone, people are constantly reading about some horrific news story that happened 2,000 miles away from them. They have no power or agency to do anything about. But at the same time, there are apps that are like, hey, forgot about me. I'm a little dusty here, that can deliver meditations and coaching and quizzes and bibliotherapy and great information through podcasts all the time. And it's a hard thing, but as a therapist, we are a guide. We're not a guru, so we want to guide you to become more powerful in your life and have that autonomy. And I think Equine-Therapy, and then like you said, you're using technology, like you said, at scale. I think we have the ability to do it. If more therapists start adapting, because it's a mix, right? Some people don't want anything to do with technology. They want to come in, and that's great. I think that's wonderful, but I think we can reach more people that can't come in. So, maybe talk a little bit about how you're bringing tech into this. Obviously, you're going to have to do a lot of marketing, but once the word gets out, I definitely think you're going to be swamped, because I've been to Denver recently, and I think it is a huge growing population, and there's a huge need for stuff that is not just an office building.
I mean, there are so many things. I just word to whatever you said, like,
right.
Getting on that soapbox of being like, oh my God, the things, it's our duty, right, to meet our clients where they're at. And most of the time, where they're at is on their phone. And you need to be able to adjust and to provide guidance and support and counsel to those individuals, because they're seeking help. They're not looking for you yet. All they know is that they're looking for a solution to their problem, and they're looking online and they're asking sweet Google and they're asking ChatGPT, their friends, for assistance. And so your job as the guide is to get in front of them first and foremost. Like, be open, be receptive, be outreaching to them, to get in front of their faces and saying, I am here for you. I'm a person. I'm a human being, and I'm connecting with you and offering those services. And I can also use technology. I'm comfortable with it, that I can communicate with you and keep up with you. So it's our duty to do this and to get on board with how technology has already transformed and will continue to speed ahead and change the landscape of our industry. And so, technology is not going to take your job. I mean, for those who question and worry that somehow you're going to be outsourced, no, we still need the human interaction and the intervention by a human to give direction and counsel and guidance and research and to correct the biases that are being developed in these algorithms. So the human being will never be outsourced for you will never see an algorithm really become the therapist, but it's the tool to get and receive therapy and connection. So that's my little soapbox speech here, but I can talk more about that. But I definitely, so I can talk more about that.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I've noticed just since COVID opened the door to having more therapy online, we have seen people in rural areas in our state, in Michigan, be able to access therapy. People that would have never been able to access it before because they live in a small town. There's a church, maybe a bar, a bowling alley, and a grocery store, and there are no therapists within 20, 30 miles of them. Or if there is, they know them or they're full. So online therapy has opened up a huge door, and I've really embraced that at our clinic. And otherwise, marketing and getting out there, it's really tough for a lot of folks. So what I've said is, we're going to get into how you're doing it, but what I've said to people is just like, hey, join a group practice, let them do it for you. Then you can not worry about, getting in front of people's faces. They'll do it for you. And then you are able to just continue to do the work, whether that be online or in person. However, I'm always challenging my therapist, like, hey, how many we not only do we want to have them connect in person and community, what digital resources are you giving your clients? And that's a huge tool that I think most therapists are not using. Can you talk about some of the things you're doing with technology to reach people?
Yeah, so in fact, it's a really important foundational cornerstone of anybody's clinical practice today. So you wear multiple hats, right? You are a clinician, you are serving a core group of clients, you maybe want to expand your practice, and there are tools and technologies there for you to reach and communicate and with your clients. So chatbots, even though I said they're not going to be taking away your job, but they could be a facilitator. They could be an intermediary between you and your client. You have multiple software tools, SaaS software, like software as a service tool, like we see our electronic health records. We see Simple Practice. We see all of these, like you log into these portals and you can run and operate your business remotely. Okay. So expanding those services, expanding the use of video in a way that it takes us from screen to screen to multiple screens to creating virtual rooms for counseling, where we're going to see, sort of jumping ahead here, but we're eventually going to see where clinicians and clients are going to be creating their own avatars, and they'll be stepping into alternative verses like the metaverse or gaming platforms that where they're interacting with others in a social setting or in a therapeutic setting. So immersive therapies are really already here, but they're just becoming more adaptable to mainstream use. So there's many ways. And then there's just, okay, so that's on the clinical side. But then if you look at the entrepreneurial small business ownership side, it translates and it jumps over onto that track as well. We can see assessment tools. We can see productivity and efficiency integrations with what's called generative AI integrations. Agenic, meaning there are AI agents that are doing the minuscule rote tasks of running and setting up a calendar, of scheduling, of meetings and social media promotion. All of that can be programmed and run on automation 24/7. So you can set up the program and you can run it you have oversight, but those little agents, those little bots are doing those things and you don't have to pay them but pennies on the dollar. Like, this is what's coming. This is what's already here. This is what's being talked about. So I'd imagine you will be creating a business and a life that you love and that you can operate without worry or anxiety. I'm sure there's maintenance that's involved and there is setup to it. But this is what I coach other practitioners about doing and incorporating into running their practices. So it's already here. Just want to help you figure it out.
Excellent. So yeah, that's one of your offerings is a clinical career. Well, it's called the Clinical Career Collective, and you do
That's my professional development company. Yeah.
a
And then
boot camp on that. Go ahead.
Mhm. Yeah. So that boot camp is called Do This First, and it's a 7-day boot camp jump-starting a program that teaches you everything about the nuts and bolts and biology of business. How to set up your entity, what kind of systems do you need in place, what kind of marketing services and tools you need, specifically around being an online business, and what does that look like. So you pretty much, if you are forward facing digitally, you're going to be online. That's how clients find you. That's how they're going to be searching for you. So putting your best foot forward and what tools and services you need to have that in place.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very exciting. So you've got a lot going on with that and the equine clinic.
Yes.
And I think that is great. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of jumps in technology, some of which I think are great and some of which I think are not great. Yeah, my my partner has an online business now because she was overwhelmed with clients. And so for people that didn't want to pay her rates, she has a very low cost monthly membership. And you could just go in for a couple months if you want. And you could see like Q&As with her, things like that. Tons of video courses, things she's written, ebooks. And now she has what you've talked about, which is a avatar called Delphi. Because she wrote a book called Panic Proof, she loaded the entire book into Delphi AI, and you have to like sign a signature because it's got to be your copyrighted material. And she put all of her videos in there. And if you're in her group, you can now go ask that robot questions 24 hours. And she's actually about to add, she's going to add about 500 pages of things she's made that are not in her book and a bunch of videos. And it's funny because she also, of course, recorded an audiobook. So the Delphi has all of the audiobook and a bunch of her videos in it. So if you're in her little collective, people will ask the questions. And it's funny because it actually sounds like her. Not only does it type like her, but if you hit, sound on, it literally talks like her. And actually, it's interesting in the group, we have kind of a division. And I'm not trying to stereotype it. Some folks, I'm not going to say who. Okay. Some folks really only want her to do the Q&As, and they love that face-to-face Zoom calls with the Q&As, and they like putting in questions and then saying, could you answer this question? But there have been some people that have been flipping out like, I love this robot thing so much because I can go on there 2 a.m. and ask a question and it'll reference what page of the book it's in, what YouTube video it's in. So it not only generates the content, it cites all of the content from stuff that they have access to, including her book and YouTube videos and podcasts. Oh yeah, all of her podcasts are in there.
That is thrilling to my research here.
So Delphi, I don't work for them, but it's called Delphi.ai. Of course, Delphi being the Greek oracle. And I think that's where they got the name. And I found that is so cool as an asset for people in the group. And I think that anybody who writes a book and has like a consistent message with podcast and YouTube could be using this tool for their clients as a benefit. So there's that coming. I think there's so much, like, I love giving clients the Insight Timer app. I love Insight Timer because you can do meditations, guided things, talks, courses. You can do the free version. You could do the paid version, and you get that extra therapeutic kind of touch outside of therapy. It's not psychotherapy at all, but it's just like a way to learn to soothe yourself. So those are some things that I've been into lately. And I can see you've got live courses. I'm assuming you probably also have some sort of digital course that people can do.
Actually, Do This First is all digital.
Oh, it's all digital. Okay.
Digital. It's all digital.
Okay.
And then the other kind of, for people who, gosh, I think it takes all kinds, and we have all different ways in which we gather and we process information. Some people are very self-directed, so therefore an online course is great because you can just run your own schedule and do it. And then there's people that want more, and they want more one-on-one, done with you, done for you sort of contact. And these are the different offers that you need to think about how available you want to be to your clients, especially if you're moving from a traditional model of trading time for dollars and you only have so many hours in the day. There's so many clients you can see. What is your dollar amount value for that information and that time spent with somebody, knee to knee? And then this is where then the world opens up to you, because there's so many ways in which you could monetize and expand and impact your offers with all the different kinds of services and technology to support it, to build it from the ground up in a way. Like, I love the fact that, group therapy and group programs are fantastic because you can do them at scale, and people just don't even, I think our industry at large has kept us small. I think that and this might aggravate or rattle some feathers here, but it is a rally cry for me. Every time I get on and I start talking to other podcasters and we talk about these issues, our industry is an amazing field to be involved in. Our institutions need to be challenged, though. They have really set a course and followed this path that has served maybe the last 60 years of delivering community mental health services. And they have trained us all to be great clinicians. I do not fault them for that in any way. They've given us the basics. But when it comes to understanding or looking at the frontier ahead of us and the horizon, reading the landscape, have failed tremendously. They are not prepping us or giving us any options to consider what seeking mental health services is going to be like in the 21st century. They just don't. And yeah.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, it's baked into it. If you, I work with a lot of new clinicians, and they all have to take the National Counselor examination, and I jokingly call it a history test, and I call grad school a history course because it has nothing to do almost with what we're actually doing.
I steal that for you?
Oh, you could totally steal it.
Exactly true.
I think grad school is a history of therapy. That's all it is.
Yeah,
and then you finally get to your internship and learn how we do it, and then that's why I. What's that?
It's almost too late.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I created the clinic I did in Grand Rapids, because I wanted to help all these new clinicians, because I never got any help when I was a new clinician, or not much. I had to go seek it. So they can work at our clinic, and they can, we have trainings 2 or 3 times a month from clinicians all across the country. They can record video, audio. They can get tons of supervision. Like most people get a couple hours a month, and at our clinic, you get a default. I require people to do 5 a month as default.
Awesome. That is so fabulous to hear.
So it's great, and I think if we can go, I would love to expand our technological reach in the future. I do agree with you on that tech is going to be even more a part. And then the difficulty is the boundaries, right? Where are your boundaries? How much do you want to put into it? How much time do you have to unload it? What is your zone of genius that you can bring technology into? For instance, I will rip on a large app. I won't say the names. I don't want to get sued, but it kind of rhymes with spoiled milk. It's called like Better something. And my problem with them is they treat therapists like Uber Eats drivers in terms of the pay. It's a joke. And then B, they sort of control you, and C, they encourage clients to be texting you at all hours. And then you have this bleeding heart to like not get paid. And so I'm saying, ditch that, make your own platforms, make your own rules about this, find your, like you said, like there is a lot of reward in doing the one-on-one practice. But again, it's baked into the system. Insurance companies reimburse individual therapy higher than group and higher than family therapy. Tell me how that makes sense. You're serving more people with the family, you get paid less. You're serving more people with the group, you get paid less. Unless you're a massive hospital, and then you have to cram 30 people in the room to even make the money to pay the bills. So it's a ridiculous system controlled not by us. So we love group therapy. The problem is a lot of times you have to do self-pay because the insurance company won't even reimburse even close to $20 a session.
You have economies of scale that warrant like an out-of-pocket pay.
Mm-hmm.
You get what you pay for.
True.
Right. It is, instead of, you could set up monthly subscription packages. You could do all sorts of things. This is where the nuance and the details of setting up your business efficiently and effectively that benefits you, because that's the reason why we're in business, is that there is an equal exchange of trade and value for the business owner and for the customer, right? So you set it up the way that it works for you. What I hate about the current structure and paradigm is that it's always set up for the insurance payers, and it really puts the customer last in line. And it screws us over as the providers. It's like we're doing the dirty work for them.
Oh, yeah. It's not pretty at all. And I don't know what the solution is to that, except to kind of do your own thing, like what you're talking about, and do as much as you can. You can work in the system and you can work outside of the system. You might have to do a little bit of both. It depends. Some people get totally out of the system. I found that groups are phenomenal. We've started some groups, but it took, 6 to 8 months, even with marketing, to get them going. But when they're going,
Oh,
they
yeah, but
roll. They
anything worth
roll.
having takes time and
Oh, it's
planning.
worth it.
Development. And there's a number of really successful therapists out there that they're just focused on that sweet spot of running the group correctly and providing amazing services to populations, a variety of populations. Like this is where I think this is where the power lies. I mean, we could really it goes back to the very question about what's entrepreneurial, what is it like to be in charge of your own destiny here? And that's exactly what our clients are looking for. They want to have agency and efficacy and autonomy in their lives and how they run it. We too, we want that as well as private business owners, so we can build it and create it ourselves without all of that other hullabaloo.
I agree. My strategy was to learn the system because I had no money and no way up. So I had to work in the system in community mental health. And then learning that, went to group practice, learned a lot, love group practices. If you can find a good one that's healthy, phenomenal place to learn from your colleagues about business, about life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went solo for a while. And I have to say, it was actually kind of lonely. I did not love it. I was kind of like constantly going to networking groups to meet other therapists because I was like, I'm a lonely person here. And actually, so then I'm now back in a group practice and I love it. And we made it very profitable for the clinicians. I have a very low take for the group. Because I don't believe in ripping off therapists, and it's been great. And we have two coupled group therapy programs, and they are like the phones are ringing off the hook for that. So it is well needed. These groups, we have a DBT group. We're going to hopefully start a parenting group, some other things like that. Whatever your passion is. I mean, if you can, I mean, post pandemic, if you can get people together, whether it's online or in person, like people are seeking that. And there's a lot of healing power in groups, animal therapy like you're doing. It's phenomenal. So I would just encourage everyone out there.
Mhm. Mhm. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I love to hear what you're up to and how you're doing it. And um, I again, like I know in the power. My own experience is that I've taken all of this business life, and I see that it's just creating if I were to really break it down to the components, it's like I'm building a widget, whether that's a product or a service or whatever, and I'm figuring out how to monetize it and democratize it and make it affordable and to bring it out to the biggest public I can to help solve a problem. And that's how I kind of apply it to my businesses. And I see an opening here. I see a way to customize mental health care in a new, unique way. And it's exciting for me to see all of this tech coming online and changing and doing things differently. But we have a responsibility, not only to the customers or the clients who are going to be using this, but also to the institutions at large. Like I often say this and I'm sort of getting off track here, but we need to be able to be sitting at the table with these development companies, with these new engineering companies. We have a wealth of information that we can share and we can guide them into developing all of this new technology. And we're not really included. And I find fault with that. We're kind of
We're not included in much, Amity.
we're late to the game here, and we
Yeah,
need to be at the table much earlier on. And I think that there's a partnership to be struck between these tech companies and us as an industry at large. It's advocacy, it's development, it's research, it's co-creating this stuff together. It's going to go so much farther, and it's going to have such a further impact if we're all on the same page and heading in the same direction.
I agree completely. And that's why I encourage therapists to not only get involved in the way you're talking about with technology and maybe even approaching tech companies or seeing how you can get involved, but also schools, local government programs, because they don't know. I mean, not the schools maybe, but the government has no idea what they're doing. They hire some consultant they tell them whatever their version of it. And I'm sorry, but if you have 20 or 30 therapists in a room who are successful together advising the government, you're going to have a much better outcome there. So, as we kind of get towards wrapping, is there a piece of advice that you would give out to the young clinician or the clinician who just is like, you know what, I need to do something with, my passion or reach a bigger audience with my gifts? Is there anything you would say to those folks?
Yeah. Like I often tell my clients, if they're at a inflection point, you got to be willing to put a pause, maybe. I think there's a lot of external voices that might be coming at you, telling you how you should be doing something. This is the right way. This is the proper way. Well, this is what's been done before. So just keep doing that same thing. And I'm probably going to get flack for this too, but in a lot of ways, if you are just starting out in this career, you are probably involved with your institution, your training school or whatever, and you're going to be looking to your teachers for guidance and assistance on trying to figure out, should you go into private practice? Should I go work for a clinical, a community health? What do I do? Where do I go? Well, I'm going to tell you, they're the last people you want to ask for advice. Sorry, but they are the last people you want to ask for advice, because they're not up to speed on what is happening out there in the for-profit world. And it ultimately comes back to your own intuition, your own sense of where you are heading. What is your North Star? It's finding out and isolating and labeling your first principles. Like, what are your values? Where do you see yourself as a clinician? What kind of clinician are you? And those questions you need to ask yourself. And that is doing a deep dive and doing the deep work to figuring out who and what you are and what your mission is in this world. And no one else can really tell that to you. You can talk about it and share it with people, but ultimately it's an inside job. And so I strongly suggest, if you're just starting out or at a crossroads, to take a moment and pause and think deeply about where you're heading and where you want to go. And once you figure out that course of direction or coordinates in your life, aim high, aim strong, and keep moving forward.
Wow. I love that. That's phenomenal. What great words from you, Amity. I'm going to be posting all of your links in the show notes, but obviously you could name drop them for the audio kind of prone people that are sitting here that want to Google while listening to this podcast. So why don't you just name drop the businesses that they can put in the search engine?
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that my professional development company, specifically for the mental health professional at large, is called clinicalcareercollective.com. That's where you can find me. I know it is a mouthful, but Clinical Career Collective is where you can find everything about do this first and setting up your practice and looking for advice and guidance on building a business that you like and love. The other way that you can reach out to me is through wayfindingranch.com and Wayfinding Practice. That is my clinical practice where I really work with other like-minded professionals on figuring out their next career steps.
Wonderful. That is a great way people can connect with you in multiple ways. I love that. And yeah, that'll all be in the show notes. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, keep doing awesome stuff out there. Looking forward to hearing more.
Thanks, Paul.
Listening to the radio, singing songs soft and low, we get it on.
And there you have it. This has been another episode of the Intentional Clinician podcast. If you are enjoying the show, please leave us a rating on iTunes or share the show with people you know. I would surely appreciate it. As some of you know, I am passionate about preventing future violence in the United States. I have started a nonprofit with colleagues called the National Violence Prevention Hotline, which is a 501c3 organization. We are endeavoring to gain funding and collaborators and volunteers so that we can start a 24/7 hotline and chat line to reach potential perpetrators before they may act violently. It is a bold effort to curb violence and save innocent lives by working to connect with potential offenders while they are in the planning stages of violence, help to de-escalate them, and provide resources so that they can get appropriate professional help. The National Violence Prevention Hotline is looking to open up a conversation about violence in society, the causes, and the solutions. You can learn more by visiting our website at violencepreventionhotline.org. You can get involved by writing your congressperson from our website, sharing it with your network, or even donating to the cause. If you are looking for an EMDR International Association consultant, I am a consultant and I can help provide 20 hours that you need to become EMDRIA certified. Just check out the show notes and send me a message and see if we're a good fit to work together. If you are in need of counseling, do not hesitate to make an appointment with a local counselor in your area. You can also make an appointment with the excellent clinicians at Health for Life Counseling in Grand Rapids as part of the Trauma Informed Counseling Center of Grand Rapids by visiting www.healthforlifegr.com. And if you are in the state of Michigan, you can also schedule a telehealth appointment. The recording you just listened to consists of the personal opinions of Paul Krauss and his guest, and while these are based upon the literature they have read and the experience in their respective fields, the information on this podcast should not be viewed or thought of as the definitive opinion on any subject. Listening to this podcast is not a substitute for treatment. If you're in a crisis, please call 911 or the National Crisis Line at 988. Support your local bookstore by shopping at bookshop.org. That's www.bookshop.org. It donates a percentage of sales to local bookstores all across the United States, which I think gives character to our cities and a place to hang out and a place to explore. You can order from the comfort of your own home online while supporting businesses near you. If you are a therapist and you are not involved in your local counseling or therapist or social work organization, please get involved to at least pay dues so that we can have lobbyists help keep mental health care accessible at the government level, and also expanding into schools and other places that need it. And also, if you didn't know, counseling organizations and professional organizations are working to keep us from becoming gig workers for a lot of large corporations who are coming in and trying to buy up local counseling agencies or basically pay you what they pay for people to deliver food to your house. So, get involved. Until next time on The Intentional Clinician, I wish you all a safe and peaceful week.